All right, UFC 290 this Saturday. It's International Fight Week from Las Vegas, Nevada, in the main event for the undisputed featherweight championship of the world. The reigning champion, Alexander Volkanovski, takes on the interim champion in Yair Rodriguez in the co-main event. It is a trilogy bout for the flyweight championship. The UFC is going to market it as the second fight, but technically it is the third fight if you include their fight on The Ultimate Fighter. We've got Brandon Moreno defending his championship against the man he's lost to twice before, in Alexandre Pantoja. Also, we've got a big matchup in the middleweight division. The winner of this fight on the main card will determine the next challenger likely for Israel Adesanya. We have got Dricus du Plessis taking on Robert Whittaker. Also, Bo Nickal is back in the retirement fight of Robbie Lawler. It is a stacked UFC 290. And folks, if you want to see more UFC here on the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Also, last week we posted a closer look into the career of Abus Magomedov. Now, Magomedov just lost to Sean Strickland in the main event, but still, we did that last week. If you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you check it out. We're probably going to do another one this week with the fighter on this card, so stay on the lookout for that. I think the Abus Magomedov video is probably one of the better videos I've made. It's a whole different style, so if you are interested in that, I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in that. So go check it out. Links in the description down below, but be on the lookout for a new video coming out later this week, similar to how the Magomedov video was earlier. Anyways, UFC 290, let's get into it. New style of format here. Well, I mean, not really that new of a format, but it's like this again, like the original videos, but I'm just going to be here in the corner. Now, we're going to do it like this. I have this for a bunch of different fights today, but I also have another format that we might go to for next week. I don't know. You guys tell me basically what you like in the comment section. Do you like this that we have on the screen right now, or do you just want my face completely off it? You can be honest with me. I don't care. You can be honest with me. I'll take constructive criticism at all points. Or do you want something like, oh, not that, like this? I don't know what to put in the top right up there, but something like this. We could do something like this too, where you have like 4 screens. I don't know what I put in the top right. Again, but you have the fight, top left, then you have the poster, bottom left, and you got me over here, and then up, we've got something else. I know a lot of you just listen to this, which is fine, but for those of you who do watch or do care at all, then let me know. So anyways, let's get into this card. We've got our first fight starting here. We've got 14 fights in this card. Well, 13 right now since Sean Brady's out of his fight against Jack Della Maddalena. So we've got 13 for now. I don't know who JDM's going to be fighting. I'm recording this on Sunday night. This will go up on, recording this on Saturday night. This will be going up on Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So I don't know who's going to be fighting, of course. Jack Della Maddalena. I've seen rumors, Joaquin Buckley. I've seen Kevin Holland. I don't know. I doubt JDM's going to be on this card, if I'm being honest with you. So let's get into it, though. Our first fight will be Edgar Chairez taking on Tatsuro Taira. Taira's a huge favorite. I mean, obviously, you look at it. He's a minus 800 favorite for good reason. The guy, undefeated, 13-0 professionally, 3-0 in the UFC. He's coming off a huge win in his last fight over Jesus Aguilar, where he submits him in the first round with the triangle armbar. And Taira is incredible on the ground. That's what he is good at. That's what he's, that's his main focus, is going to be his ground game. Now, Chairez is a guy making his UFC debut. This was originally supposed to be Cledson Rodriguez versus Tatsuro Taira in Jacksonville last month. That fight got canceled, so now they're getting Taira on the pay-per-view card against Chairez, a guy making his UFC debut. It's an incredibly tough spot for the 10-4 Edgar Chairez here. This is a guy who's been submitted twice before. He's fought most recently at Fury UFC. He most recently won in a main event over there, won by armbar in the 4th round. Before that, he won a fight on UWC, where he won by guillotine choke in the first round. And before that, he lost on the Contender Series against another UFC fighter in Clayton Carpenter. Carpenter, by the way, 7-0. Picked up a win in his first UFC fight against Juan Camilo Ronderos. Now he's supposed to, in Carpenter, he was supposed to fight Steve Ursig. Fight never happened. But anyways, Carpenter went out there. He beat Chairez. He beat him by unanimous decision in that fight. In the victory for Carpenter, 3 rounds obviously went the distance, but also for Chairez's other losses, you got a Jesus Aguilar loss back in 2020. Of course, Aguilar would then go on to fight Tatsuro Taira in his first fight in the UFC. So if MMA Math says anything, Taira beat Aguilar, Aguilar beat Chairez, Tatsuro Taira should probably be Edgar Chairez. And again, that's likely what's going to happen. I'll just say it upright right now. Tatsuro Taira is likely going to win this fight. But Aguilar was able to go in there and submit him in the 5th round of their fight for the UWC Flyweight Championship in September of 2020. Again, Tatsuro Taira was able to submit Jesus Aguilar in the 1st round. goes to show you. I think this is a fight where you're going to say, all right, there's levels to this game. Tatsuro Taira is levels ahead of Edgar Chairez in this fight. And again, Taira's 23 years old, undefeated, huge Japanese prospect. I think he gets the win here. I know it's not in Japan, but they have a card in Asia and Singapore. They turn him around for that Singapore card where the Zombie and Max Holloway are main eventing. Get a lot of eyes again on Tatsuro Taira. I don't know where on the card he's going to be since this fight was just announced. I don't know, we'll see, but Tatsuro Taira should be able to win this fight, and I got him to win by first round submission. I don't think it's going to be all that competitive. Tatsuro Taira is going to mop the floor with Edgar Chairez. Again, Taira is a guy who's 3-0 in the UFC. He should not be fighting guys who are making their UFC debut. He should be fighting guys who are in the rankings, or at least, again, borderline top 15 guys, not entry-level UFC guys. Taira's got in here. He's beat Carlos Candelario. He beat CJ Vergara. He beat Jesus Aguilar. Now he gets Edgar Chairez. He's going to win this fight by first round sub. Our next fight will be, as I have to change the graphic now, we've got Cameron Saaiman taking on Terrence Mitchell. UFC debut spot here for Terrence Mitchell. He is 15-2, and his last fight was a win at Alaska Combat Entertainment for Terrence Mitchell. Again, another guy, or similar to, I believe, how Jared Cannonier came up. Fights a lot in Alaska, has a lot of fights in Alaskan promotions. For Cameron Saaiman, this is a guy who is 2-0 so far in the UFC, his first one being at UFC 282, a big TKO finish over Stephen Koslow late in that third round, and then his second fight, a majority decision victory over Amanda Martinez, where he drops Amanda Martinez in that fight. He outstrikes Amanda Martinez, gets the job done with the takedowns as well in the second and third round, but again, dominant wrestling and not really dominant wrestling, but good striking out of Saaiman as we go later in that fight, and it really is a fight that I thought he won. I don't see the Sal D'Amato 28-28 for that fight, if I'm being honest with you, but I thought Cameron Saaiman went in there and put on a pretty good performance at UFC 285. He's taken on, again, the UFC newcomer in Terrence Mitchell. Mitchell's a guy who is 15-2 professionally. Again, this fight is in the bantamweight division, but 33 years old, making his UFC debut. Cameron Saaiman, as you can see, pretty big favorite, minus 450 for Mitchell, plus 350. Saaiman was originally supposed to be taking on Christian Rodriguez. Rodriguez, though, had to pull out this fight. Obviously, Christian Rodriguez, most known for his win over Raul Rosas. Of course, he's not going to get the fight against Saaiman anymore, and Saaiman gets a guy who's coming in on relatively short notice. Saaiman, guys, went into the UFC by winning on the Contender Series, where he won by a left hook knockout in the third round. Again, for Terrence Mitchell, it's an older bantamweight coming into this fight. He's shown power. He's shown the ability to get submissions. His last 3 wins by stoppage were submission victories. And now for Terrence Mitchell, it's interesting because he fought on The Ultimate Fighter back in 2016. He lost by first round knockout to Kai Kara France. He has not fought, obviously, in the UFC since. But after that, he takes 2 years off. He goes into Alaska FC 136, picks up a win by rear naked choke in the first round. Then was booked against Jose Johnson, doesn't have the fight. Then goes and fights Josh Terry, but that's 4 years after his fight in 2018. He wins by DQ, then wins back-to-back fights so far in 2023, and now he gets the shot in the UFC. Real interesting. I mean, it's a real interesting development, but at least recently for Terrence Mitchell, it has been the ground game that has won him fights. For Cameron Saaiman, this is a guy who can get it done on the feet. He can get it done on the ground, an all-around really good fighter. He struggled a little bit with the takedowns in his first fight, just giving them up to Koslow, but he, reversed a lot of positioning a lot in that fight. He had 6 reversals in that fight at UFC 282 in December, so not really concerned with the ground game at all at Cameron Saaiman. I'm not concerned, obviously, in the striking. I think he's got it on the feet against Terrence Mitchell, and I think this is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be back and forth, a really good one. Saaiman, the South African fighter, 22 years old. Terrence Mitchell, 11 years his elder. I'm going to take the younger fighter. I'm going to take the favorite here in Cameron Saaiman. I think he's able to go out there, and I think he's able to get a stoppage. I'm going to go second round knockout victory here for Cameron Saaiman. Really like the hands. He lets them go in his fights. I don't think he's going to really be wanting to engage much in the grappling with Terrence Mitchell, considering I think that's really where Mitchell has his only shots where he can potentially win this fight. So in all, give me the minus 450 favorite. Give me Cameron Saaiman to win this fight. Like him to get it by second round knockout. Next up, we have got the rematch between Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield. And again, I don't completely know what the order of this card is going to be. We obviously have the main card order set, but the prelims will look something like this. It might be out of place, but this is what we have for now. At least this is what Tapology's got. But Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menifield, it is a rematch of their fight earlier this year. That was at UFC 284 in Australia. It was a draw, and it was an interesting fight in that one because for Jimmy Crute, again, this is a guy at one point big winning streak, or good start to his UFC career. He runs into Anthony Smith, loses in Jacksonville, then drops his next fight to Jamal Hill, and then he gets Alonzo Menifield. And this is a weird fight because that first round is all Alonzo Menifield, and the second round is all Alonzo Menifield as well. But in that third round, Jimmy Crute does come back. He does take down Menifield in that third, like he did in the first round. He took down Menifield 4 times in that first round, only had 2 minutes and 30 seconds of control. Menifield does drop him in that round as well, and Menifield drops him again in the second. The third round, all Jimmy Crute, 4 minutes of control. Alonzo Menifield really can't get much going in that round. But you get 28-28s. You get a 29-27 for Menifield, and then you get 2 28-28s in that fight. Interesting. Again, it's an interesting cards, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't really remember this fight. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember exactly how that played out, but I believe there's a point deduction, right? That's how we got to, that's how we got to the scorecard. Menifield grabbed the fence in the third round because, it was 2-0 Menifield going into the third, but then technically you give a 10-8 to Jimmy Crute in that third round because of Menifield grabbing the fence, so that's how you get the scorecards. One judge had a 10-8 for Alonzo Menifield, though, so that's how you have the one scorecard going to Alonzo Menifield. I wasn't completely sure how that went, but that's how that fight went. So, again, Menifield was supposed to win the fight, but he just grabbed the fence in the third round. He was in control of that fight. Jimmy Crute went to the wrestling a lot, but on the feet, again, Jimmy Crute was just kind of eating punches from Menifield, and Menifield was somewhat walking him down, really striking at range, and just hitting him with a lot of power. I believe in that original fight, I did pick Jimmy Crute to win. No, I picked Menifield. I actually did pick Menifield to win. I picked Menifield by first round knockout. I'm probably going to pick the same thing here. Menifield's just got to be able to seal the deal in this fight. He just, because he got close in the first fight, knocks him down on a couple occasions, but in that third round, Jimmy Crute again puts on the wrestling shoes, and Jimmy Crute does execute when it does come to the ground. And if Menifield doesn't grab the fence, he wins the fight 29-28. But I mean, you look at what Menifield was able to do before the Jimmy Crute fight, back-to-back first-round finishes over Oscar Morozov, again the fraud guy from the Ukraine who, came into the week with the record of like 30-6, and then his record by the end of the week was 17-14 because the UFC figured out, no, it wasn't the UFC. Someone figured out on Twitter that this guy, had fake fights on his record. Guys were taking dives for him. Really weird story if you haven't gone and checked it out. Oscar Morozov from the Ukraine. Crazy. But Menifield beats him. He beats Misha Serkinov before that. He drops the fight before those 2 fights to Will Knight by unanimous decision. But Menifield all around, really good striker. He's got heavy hands. And again, he's going to be looking for the kill against Jimmy Crute. Crute, again, a guy at one point in time was 4-1 in the UFC. The only loss being the loss to Misha Serkinov, but after that beats Michal Zlasheshek and beats Modestas Bukauskas, both by first round finish. Then he runs into Anthony Smith. He gets finished in the first round, or it was he lost the fight due to injury, but it was an accumulation of damage of what Anthony Smith was kicking the legs out of Jimmy Crute. And then after that, he gets knocked out by Jamal Hill in the apex in 48 seconds, and has the draw to Menifield. The thing is, again, Alonzo Menifield was on his way to beat Jimmy Crute in that first fight. If he doesn't grab the fence, he likely wins. Now, it's a rematch. It's not often you get rematches like this in the UFC, especially when, again, the result was kind of there. It's just that a penalty made it a draw, and in a non-title fight between 2 guys who aren't in the rankings, it's kind of odd that you run it right back. Alonzo Menifield, I think, is going to win. Now, is he going to be able to finish this fight like he couldn't the first time? I don't know. I think if you're going to pick Alonzo Menifield, you're going to pick him to win by knockout, but it's kind of clear now. Menifield's a better striker. Jimmy Crute's gonna try to go in there and wrestle him, but if Crute can't wrestle him often, he's gonna get dropped. Menifield's gonna put him down, and I think eventually Menifield's gonna finish him because Menifield had him close at some points in that fight. I think he's gonna finally get him here. I think Alonzo Menifield comes out here and picks up the victory. I'm going first round knockout for Alonzo Menifield. I don't think it's gonna take too long for him in this fight, but I do definitely see the finish from Menifield. If he wins, it's gonna be by finish, probably. But again, keep saying it from that first fight. If he doesn't grab the fence, he wins by decision. So I wouldn't be too surprised at a decision finish, but if you're picking Alonzo Menifield, most of the time you're picking him to win by knockout because of the heavy power that he does possess. Again, Crute's going to get kind of stuck being a wrestler in this fight. The guy has not won a fight, Jimmy Crute, since 2020, where he had a lot of hype. He hasn't won a fight since then, though. I don't think he's going to get one here. It's been over 3 years since Jimmy Crute's won a fight. I think Alonzo Menifield's going to pick up the dub. I think he gets it done by first round knockout. Next up, we've got a fight here between Vitor Petrino and Marcin Prachnio, back at 205 pounds, just like the previous bout for Prachnio. This guy is 16-6, taking on his opponent, the 8-0, the undefeated Vitor Petrino. And for Petrino in his last fight, it's a victory over Anton Turkulaj. He wins that fight by unanimous decision. For Prachnio, his last victory was a win over Will Knight, but it feels like everyone's beating Will Knight at this point in time. Anyways, for Prachnio, this is a guy who came into the UFC with a horrible start. It was bad. He drops his first fight to Sam Alvey. I talked about this fight a lot where, he kind of just stays. He doesn't move his head in that fight. He just kind of stands, just kind of throws with Alvey. And then there's one point in the fight where he's got Alvey a little bit backed up. So he thinks he has Alvey a little bit hurt. So he walks forward to try to hit Alvey, but he walks in with his hands down. So he just walks in like this, and Alvey just clocks him with the big right, drops him a couple times, and wins the fight by knockout. It was horrible fight IQ by Marcin Prachnio, but he comes back. What's you gonna do? They book him against Magomed Ankalaev. He gets knocked down in the first round. Then he fights Michael Rodriguez. He gets knocked down in the first round. I was surprised they gave him a fourth fight in the UFC, but he somehow goes in there and outstrikes Khalil Roundtree. Then he goes in and knocks out Ike Villanueva, or TKO's Ike Villanueva. Villanueva was not very good. He's only beat, oh God, what was that guy's name? He beat somebody. Hold on, I gotta look. He beat someone really bad. It was a Brazilian guy. Because Ike Villanueva had a rough UFC run. What was this guy's name? Oh, it was Vinicius Moreira. Yeah, I remember that was a co-main event of a card. I can't believe it. But yeah, Marcin Prachnio goes in there with a body kick, as a liver kick to Prachnio. Then he drops the fight to Felipe Lins, and most recently he just beat Will Knight. He got that fight. He won that fight by decision, completely dominated the William Knight fight. That was on the Andrade Blanchfield card. That fight was not competitive. It was the fight where Will Knight's corner was telling him, hey, we gotta go, dude. Like, what are we doing? It was one of the worst performances in UFC history. William Knight in that fight had 8 significant strikes. 8 total strikes. He got outstruck 79-8 in that fight. The first round, 3 strikes from Knight. The second round, 1 strike from Knight. The third round, 4 strikes from Knight. And I'll just be honest with you, it's not like Marcin Prachnio had an amazing performance. It's just what happened because Will Knight was just gun shy in that fight. Now, Prachnio is going to get the undefeated Vitor Petrino in this fight. For Petrino, the 1 wins over Anton Turkulaj. He beats him by unanimous decision. That's on that card from the hotel, from the casino in Las Vegas, where they should do a lot more cards, but they do them in the Apex because the UFC likes to watch us suffer. But he beats Anton Turkulaj. He beats him by unanimous decision. Fight of the night. Really good fight. Really good back and forth fight. Good back and forth action on the ground. Petrino, though, wins the fight 30-27. It's a good performance, though, and it's a really good first fight for him in the UFC. And for Petrino, again, he's got hands, but also he showed in that fight against Turkulaj he can wrestle too. 7 takedowns. He got 7 takedowns in that fight. Went 7 for 9. 6 minutes of control. Good win for Petrino. He showed that he can again use the hands as well and win a fight that way. It's going to be a tougher fight for Marcin Prachnio, I think, because I think Petrino will be able to wrestle him, and then also on the feet, I do like Vitor a lot as well. I think he's a better striker than Prachnio. Prachnio, again, as I think his best striking performance to date is the Khalil Roundtree fight. It's not the Will Knight fight because Will Knight didn't throw anything at him, so really there's nothing to show in that fight. But his best striking performance is the Khalil Roundtree fight. He, stays on the outside, really picks apart Roundtree, wins every single round, or wins 2 out of 3 rounds in that fight. He drops He dropped the second round in that fight, I believe. But it's a good performance for Prachnio. You can make the case that he won every single round in that fight. He now gets Petrino, though, and I just think Petrino's a better striker. He's got a lot of power, as you were able to see on the Contender Series and what he did before the UFC. His first fight again in the UFC was a different change of pace, I would say, than what his run in the regionals were. But all around, again, I like Vitor Petrino to win this fight. If we look at Tapology here, I don't know if people are picking him by knockout. I could see decision, I could see knockout. I'll go knockout because, again, you're likely going to see a striking fight between these two guys, and probably somebody's going to get knocked out. So I'm going to go Vitor Petrino to win this fight. I think he's going to do kind of what he did in the regionals and what he did before he got to the UFC. I got first round knockout here. When you look again, what this guy was able to do outside the UFC, given it was against opponents that weren't very good. He fought Antagulov outside the UFC at UAE Warriors, but before that UAE Warriors fight, I mean, you got to win over a guy who was 1-17, 0-6, 0-0. Then he fights Antagulov, and then he wins in the Contender. So he's not a fraud or anything. He's not a can crusher. Well, he kind of is a can crusher, but he's been winning fights against guys who aren't cans, so it's fine. But I like what Petrino's got here. Again, Prachnio, sure, his career resurgence has been good. He's won 3 out of his last 4 fights over William Knight, Ike Villanueva, and Khalil Roundtree. Now, the Roundtree win is better than the other 2. But still, remember, this guy started his UFC career 0-3. And, he's lost to Felipe Lins. And Lins isn't horrible either, but I think the better striker in this fight is Vitor Petrino. I think Petrino's got more power, and I think Petrino's going to put him down. I think Vitor Petrino is going to win the fight. Next up, we've got Kirk taking on Esteban Ribovics in this fight. And for Kirk, It's been a lot of inactivity so far. 11-5 professional record for him. His last fight is a loss to Damon Jackson. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He comes in, he beats Makwan Amirkhani, and he beats him by unanimous decision. He's an underdog in that fight, but he comes in there, he picks up the victory, and then after that, he runs into Damon Jackson, and he loses. And again, Kirk has not been all that active. His last fight was in 2022, in March of that year, on the Santos Ankalaev card. He loses to Damon Jackson. He gets subbed in the second round. His opponent here, Esteban Ribovics, who is a fairly big favorite in this fight, or I mean, moderate favorite. He's minus 210 in this one. But for Ribovics, he is 0-1 in the UFC, losing his first fight in the promotion to Jaguar Paw. He loses by unanimous decision. Fought in the Contender Series before that. He won by first round knockout, getting his contract in the UFC. And originally, that fight at UFC 285 was supposed to be between Ribovics and Camuela Kirk. Kirk pulled out of that fight at the last minute. So now here we get it at UFC 290. It's not a bad fight because Camuela Kirk, when he does fight, is pretty entertaining. This guy can mix it up really well on the feet and on the ground. He's just lost a lot of big fights. He lost a fight to Billy Quarantillo in the Contender Series, where he was a pretty big favorite in. He lost to Bruno Souza in LFA, where he lost by split decision. And of course, he's lost the Damon Jackson fight, which again is a moderate step up between the Makwan Amirkhani fight. Now, Makwan Amirkhani, I believe, it was after the Edson Barbosa fight. Camuela Kirk goes in there and beats him by unanimous decision. Makwan Amirkhani's not the same guy he once was. When he started his UFC run, fairly good. I think he started, 6-1 in the UFC. Now he's 7-7. I don't think he's fighting the promotion anymore after his loss to Jack Shore. But Kirk beats Amirkhani. They lose to Damon Jackson by submission. But again, for Camuela Kirk, this is a guy who can get it done on the ground. He can get it on the feet as well. He won an LFA against Kevin Kroom, where he submitted him in the first round. The Billy Quarantillo fight in the Contender Series is interesting because Billy Quarantillo really takes over on the feet. Camuela Kirk goes for a couple takedowns. He gets a couple in the second round, but after that, he can't get back to the legs, and he can't take Quarantillo down after the first. So Quarantillo in the second really unloads on him, outstrikes him, gets us 113-33 in the second round, and in the third round, Quarantillo just kind of, picks up the scraps and finishes him in that third. Now, for Camuela Kirk, he's going to be taking on a guy here in Esteban Ribovics, who is a pretty damn good striker. You look at his last fight, though, against Jaguar Paw. He loses it where, again, he's trying to keep the fight on the feet. Jaguar Paw is trying to take him down. Ribovics, again, gets taken down in the first, gets taken down in the second, gets taken down in the third. His striking makes up for it some in the second round, where he does drop Jaguar Paw in that second round, but the first and the third, he does outstrike his opponent, but he gets wrestled, he gets taken down in the first and the third round. Even the round where he drops Jaguar Paw as well in the second, he does get taken down in that round. That's really what hurt Ribovics in this fight, was the ability of, he couldn't get off of his back, basically. And, he popped back up to his feet a couple times, but, again, 11 for 21 in the takedown attempts from his opponent. He lost the fight by unanimous decision, 29-28. He's gonna have to stay off the ground in this fight as well. I will assume that Camuela Kirk is gonna try something like that in this fight. I mean, you saw him do that against Quarantillo. He couldn't do it against Damon Jackson because he didn't want to, because the ground game that Damon Jackson does possess. He didn't against Makwan Amirkhani, but I think Camuela Kirk will likely try to do it here against a very good striker in Esteban Ribovics. If not, he's just gonna get knocked out. That's kind of how simple I have it right now, because Ribovics is a good striker who's got a lot of power. Like, this guy hits hard. Really good fighter coming out of Argentina here. I think it's a good fight because for Camuela Kirk, going up a weight, right? Because he was at 145 his last fight. Now this fight is going to be at 155 pounds. So the Makwan Amirkhani fight and the Damon Jackson fight are both at featherweight. This one will be at lightweight, so it will be Kirk's lightweight debut here in the UFC. I think he just gets outstruck, though. I don't think Kirk's able to take this fight down if he tries. If not, striking-wise, I agree with Ribovics a lot more. I think he's got faster hands. I think he's got more power. And I think he's able to beat Camuela Kirk on the feet. So I'm going to go with the favorite here. I'm going to go with Esteban Ribovics to win this fight. I think he gets it done. I'll go second round knockout victory. Hey, so far on this card, I have gone 5 fights, 5 finishes. This doesn't happen often, but I'm going to go Ribovics to win this fight by second round knockout. Again, I just think his striking game's better. I think he's quicker. I think he's faster. And I don't think Camuela Kirk's going to be able to take this fight down. All right, next up, we have got a huge favorite here in Yasmin Jauregui taking on Denise Gomes. I always butcher her name, but Yasmin's 10-0. Again, UFC's been hyping her up a fair amount. But her last fight was tough. She got a fight in the Estela Nunes fight. Nunes brought it to her. And I know Estela Nunes hasn't been the greatest UFC fighter. She is 0-3 in the promotion, and she fights next week on the Holly Holm Myro Bueno Silva card, which, oh, by the way, that card's horrible. It is a very bad card. We're going to talk about it, but I might make a separate video talking about how bad that card is. The Holly Holm Bueno Silva card is disgusting. Anyways, Estela Nunes fights on that card. She probably got her 4th fight because of her performance against Jauregui. But Yasmin Jauregui taking on her opponent here in Denise Gomes. And for Yasmin, she is a huge favorite. She's minus 450 in this fight, which I've seen a lot of people saying that, she probably shouldn't be that high of a favorite. And I kind of agree, because Denise Gomes, has lost before in the UFC. She did lose to Loma Lukboni in her debut. But 1-1, if Estela Nunes was able to give Yasmin Jauregui that much trouble, Denise Gomes will give her some trouble as well. And I'm not slighting Jauregui at all. She's 24 years old. She's very young in her career. She is undefeated. She did, by the way, come back and beat Estela Nunes. She gets dropped in the first round. She probably loses. Yeah, she does lose that first round. The second round, though, she really takes over. I wouldn't say it's similar to the Sean Strickland Abus Magomedov fight, where Abus Magomedov just went for it in the first round. He threw everything at Sean Strickland, couldn't finish him in that first round, then just got killed in the second round. But to a similar extent, again, Nunes wins that first round against Jauregui. In the second round, Yasmin takes over. She finishes her in the second on the ground. But for Yasmin here, this is a tougher opponent for her. Her first fight in the UFC was Yasmin Lucindo, where she beats by unanimous decision in San Diego. She now gets Denise Gomes here, and for Gomes, again, 1-1, dropping her first fight to Loma Lukboni. It's a fight where she gets outstruck by Lukboni and out-grappled by Lukboni as well. It's an all-around fight. I mean, again, it gets contested on the ground and on the feet, but a lot of groundwork is done in that fight, and Loma Lukboni kind of was the more superior, was the superior grappler in that fight. Gomes did have her moments, but again, it was more Loma Lukboni using her judo and whatnot to, again, keep top control and beat Denise Gomes. But Gomes did have some moments in that fight. And their last fight, it's a big win over Bruna Brazil. She finished Brazil in the second round with, by knockout. The first round, Gomes does win. The second round, more of the same. It's a TKO finish for Denise. Oh, no, it's a knockout finish for Denise Gomes. She got the takedown a couple times, but in that second round, she dropped Bruna Brazil. That's on the Kansas City card between Max Holloway and Arnold Allen. That wasn't that long ago. That was only 3 months ago. She's now back taking on Yasmin Jauregui. And again, for Gomes, she's, we've seen her go out there. We've seen her wrestle and also get finishes with her power as well. And that's something that, again, did trouble Yasmin a little bit in her last fight, was that Estela Nunes was able to put some power into her punches. She's able to wobble. Jauregui, she's able to drop her as well in the first round in Orlando. That's why I don't love the odds for this one. I don't think Yasmin should be a minus 450 favorite. Do I think she's going to win? I'll answer that question, yes. I think Yasmin Jauregui is going to win this fight. Again, she's dealt with adversity. We've seen that she's able to, deal with that and come back and win fights. But do I think it's going to be a clean sweep? No, I don't. Gomes is the younger fighter. She's 23 years old. Yasmin's 24. But I don't think it's going to be one-way traffic. I think Gomes will have her moments as well. I think she might take down Yasmin. I think she might hit her a little bit, or just at least, put some damage into her on the feet as well. I just don't see it being a walk in the park. I don't see it being a walk in the park at all for Yasmin Jauregui. I think Denise Gomes is a tough fighter. I think Gomes will threaten a little bit with her striking and even with the grappling as well, but I think it probably will be the striking out of Denise Gomes that does hurt her. And again, Denise Gomes, for a fighter, my camera turns off. For Denise Gomes, it's a fighter who has never won a fight by submission, but she is a good wrestler. She does have good jiu-jitsu, just often doesn't get the finish on the ground. Well, she hasn't gotten the finish on the ground. It's been a lot by knockout for Gomes, at least outside of the UFC. But she is going to test Yasmin everywhere in this fight. It's going to be a very good test for Yasmin, especially on the ground and on the feet as well. But again, similar to her last fight, I think Yasmin will deal with a little bit of adversity. I think she will be put in a little bit of some troubling spots in this fight, but I think she's still going to win. I don't think she's going to get the finish like she did in her last one, but I think she'll go out there, she'll pick up the victory. She'll remain undefeated. I have her going to 11-0. Yasmin Jauregui wins this fight. She'll get it done by unanimous decision. Next up, in the flyweight division, as I need to change the screen. In the flyweight division, we have got Shannon Ross taking on Jesus Aguilar. Now, I don't know where this fight's going to be. Again, I think we're a little bit out of order here with the prelim, order. If you want to skip to the fight that you want to go to, links are in the description down below, or timestamps are in the description down below. But I would assume this fight would probably be lower on the card, at least lower than Tatsuro Taira, because, Jesus Aguilar lost to Tatsuro Taira in his last fight. But here it is in the flyweight division. We've got Shannon Ross taking on Jesus Aguilar. For Shannon Ross, he's got to win this fight to stay in the UFC. Because Ross is one of the guys who, I believe it's only happened twice. It's Carlos Candelario, right? Lost his fight in the Contender Series and still got into the UFC. Shannon Ross was not signed the night of, the Contender Series, but he loses to Vinicius Salvador. Okay, he loses in the Contender Series to Vinicius Salvador, and then the UFC signs him. They bring him in for a fight at UFC 284 against Cledson Rodriguez, where, oh, by the way, he gets knocked down in under a minute. Now, they brought him in because they wanted him on the Australia card. You know, obviously, Shannon Ross from Australia. He's from Queensland. If Shannon Ross was going to make it to the UFC, if he was going to get into the promotion, this was going to have to be his time. I mean, this is, you know, because he's 34 years old, he's older. This is going to have to be it for him. But it was an interesting signing again because the guy's 13-7 now. He lost his first fight by first round knockout. They kind of have to give him a second fight because that's kind of what the UFC does with contracts for the most part. I'm assuming they gave him a 2-fight deal, so if he wins this fight, he'll stay in the promotion. If he loses, he's out. But it's a tough fight against Jesus Aguilar, it just is. I know Aguilar has not won in the UFC yet, but neither has Shannon Ross. Ross just really hasn't impressed me all that much. He got knocked down 3 times in the Vinicius Salvador fight. I remember the commentators in that fight in the Contender Series kept hyping up the fact that Shannon Ross had a lot of heart, and it's true. Okay, he kept getting knocked down, he kept getting back up, and he kept striking. That's fair. But again, Vinicius Salvador ran right through him. And again, Shannon Ross would keep responding and he would keep hitting Salvador back, but what he was hitting Salvador with wasn't really affecting Salvador all that much, and Vinicius Salvador was kind of just walking right through it, and he kept just hitting Shannon Ross in that fight. And now, again, for Vinicius Salvador, this is a guy who's 0-1 in the UFC now after dropping his first fight to Victor Moreno. He'll get CJ Vergara in a couple weeks, but again, Shannon Ross loses to Salvador and then gets knocked down in the first round by Cledson Rodriguez. The fight's only 59 seconds. It's at UFC 284, again, like we talked about earlier, and in his home country, Shannon Ross gets knocked out in 59 seconds. He's going to get Jesus Aguilar in this fight. And for Aguilar, again, not proven in the UFC either, but we talked about it earlier. He's won a fight over Tatsuro Taira's opponent this weekend in Edgar Chairez, where he submits him in the 5th round with the guillotine choke. Aguilar's really good on the ground. He's got really good submission skills. His striking leaves a little bit to be desired, if we're being honest with ourselves, but he's a really good grappler. I know, again, he got submitted and taken down, swarmed by Tatsuro Taira, but Tatsuro Taira is what we're going to call a super prospect, a guy who someday will likely be fighting for a UFC. Yeah, okay, I wouldn't go that far, but a guy who's going to be in the top 5 very soon, I think, or at least the top 10. I would not surprise me at all if Tatsuro Taira won a UFC championship or even just honestly contested in a UFC championship bout. That's how good this guy is, and it's really no shame in losing to that guy. I don't think so. Now, I'm not going to say that Tatsuro Taira and Jesus Aguilar are going to meet in a championship fight like we've been talking about between Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan for the longest time, but still, I don't really think there's much to be disappointed about with Jesus Aguilar losing a fight to Tatsuro Taira, because that's how good Tatsuro Taira is. Now, for Aguilar, he's the heavy favorite in this fight, or at least on Tapology, he's 91% to Ross's 9. You got minus 225 for Aguilar, you got plus 180 for Shannon Ross. I think you hammered the Jesus Aguilar line in this one. I don't think Shannon Ross is going to be able to deal with him on the ground. I think Aguilar is going to, really swarm him on the ground. I think he's going to be able to submit him. I'm just not all that impressed with Shannon Ross as a whole. His last loss by submission was the Steve Erceg fight where they fought in Eternal MMA. Again, for Shannon Ross, this guy's lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. The one win is at UAE Warriors, where he won by decision in 2020. You take that fight away, his last win's 2019. Again, it felt like something that they needed to get Shannon Ross in the UFC because they wanted him on the Australia card. They wanted another Australian fighter. And also, he's 34. If he's going to be in the UFC, it's going to have to be right now, especially at 125. If 34 is old for a flyweight. I don't know. Ross, it's just he's an interesting fighter because they'll tell you he's a striker, which I guess he is. But he's been beat pretty badly in his first 2 fights under the Zuffa banner. But if he's going to beat Jesus Aguilar, it's going to have to be through that as well. I mean, he's not going to out-grapple Jesus Aguilar. Shannon Ross hasn't been taken down yet in the UFC, so there's something. But, Cledson Rodriguez didn't attempt to take down. Vinicius Salvador attempted 1. He didn't get it. So I think that's the one thing, if you're hoping Shannon Ross can pick up the victory, that's what you're hoping for. But I don't think he's going to be able to set the takedowns at Aguilar. I think Aguilar is going to take him down, and I don't think this is going to last too long. Really, I mean, I hate saying this, but I don't know if Shannon Ross should really be in the UFC. I don't know if he should. So I think Aguilar is able to go in there and really prove that. The Mexican fighter is going to go out there, and he's going to win this fight. He's going to get it done by first-round submission. A lot of finishes on this card, but you're looking at these names, and you're looking at the guys they're going up against, and it's not like Jesus Aguilar's a world beater or something, but I think in this particular spot, he's a lot better than Shannon Ross. Ross, again, if he's going to win this fight, he's got to keep it on the feet. He's got to make it a dog fight, because that's how he was able to stay, at least in the fight with Vinicius Salvador. He wasn't able to win that fight, but that's how he was able to stay in the fight. He didn't win that fight. Aguilar's going to go in there. He's going to take him down. He's going to submit him. Give me Jesus Aguilar to go out here and pick up the victory. I like him to win by first round submission. All right, next up, we have got the retirement fight of Ruthless Robbie Lawler. One of the greatest fighters of all time will hang it up here in the featured prelim against Niko Price. It sucks because Robbie's old. Robbie's 41 years old. I've been watching Robbie Lawler for a very long time, and this will be his final fight. He's been in the UFC for a very long time. His first UFC fight. Let's go all the way back to UFC 37 High Impact, your main event. Marula Bustamante taking on Matt Lindland for the middleweight championship. Marula Bustamante won by third round submission. Also on that card, Rico Rodriguez won by second round TKO. BJ Penn beat Paul Creighton by second round knockout. Phil Baroni was on the card. The first fight on that card, though, was Robbie Lawler winning by decision against Aaron Riley. Robbie Lawler was 20 years old for that fight. Obviously went to Strikeforce, came back to UFC, won a world championship. Now Robbie Lawler's in his retirement fight at the age of 41. Robbie Lawler will make the final walk to the UFC octagon in a fight where he is an underdog in, and he's a pretty sizable underdog in against Niko Price. Again, it's just Robbie's old and Robbie's been in a lot of wars. That's kind of, that's the theme. Because the tough fights Robbie Lawler's been in. I mean, we can list them all. The Johnny Hendricks fights were tough. The Matt Brown fight was tough. The Rory McDonald fight was very tough. The Carlos Condit fight was very tough too. And then even the fights he loses, right? The Woodley fight, he gets knocked out. The Cowboy fight, he wins. The RDA fight just kind of got beat up, but he didn't take too much damage in all fairness. The Ben Askren fight, it was kind of tough. He just got choked out. It was a tough fight, don't get me wrong. Didn't take too much damage. He just got choked out. The Colby fight was tough. Colby put it on him. Colby set the record for most strikes attempted in that fight, or strikes thrown. The Neil Magny fight, Magny just kind of wrestled him, and Magny just kind of kept his distance and touched him up. The Nick Diaz fight, he beats Nick Diaz, it's whatever. And then Brian Barberena gets knocked out. Barberena TKOs him. It was the first time he was finished on the feet since the Woodley fight, something that Colby or Magny weren't able to do. Brian Barberena knocked him out, given though Barberena, that's his style of fight, he just stood there and he just swung with Robbie for 9 minutes, and he eventually knocked him out in the second round. It's a really good fight, actually. It's at UFC 276, International Fight Week last year. A year's passed. Robbie's back. He was supposed to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio last year. I'm glad that fight didn't happen because I think Ponzinibbio still at this point of his career is a mismatch for Robbie. Niko Price, the opportunity is going to be there for Robbie Lawler. Niko Price hasn't been going crazy. I mean, again, the guy has one win since 2019. It's the win over Alex Oliveira, where wins by unanimous decision. That's his only win. Price hasn't been winning all that often, and I know Niko Price creates for a lot of fun fights, and Niko Price, is a very fun fighter to watch. He has spectacular finishes like his win over James Vick, the upkick knockout at UFC Fight Night back in 2019. The win over Randy Brown in Idaho, where Price is on bottom and he just hits him with hammer fist from the bottom and he knocks out Randy Brown. He finishes Tim Means in 2019 in Wichita. Niko Price creates for really fun fights and really fun finishes, but he hasn't won all that often. Since the James Vick fight and since we've gotten into the pandemic era, or now past the pandemic era, he's got the loss to Vicente Luque at UFC 249. That fight's really good though, and he really, it's a really good show for himself, Niko Price, in that fight against Luque. He just loses, no shame in that, but he gets into a back and forth war with Vicente Luque, and Luque eventually gets the finish due to doctor stoppage. He's got the draw against Cowboy where he would have won, but then he grabbed the fence or something. I forget what Niko Price did, but that's why it was a draw. But then he got overturned because Price was on the weed. And then he runs into Michel Pereira. He loses by unanimous decision. He's just kind of a step behind Pereira in that fight. He beats Alex Oliveira by unanimous decision. It's just kind of it's a Niko Price fight that he wins in the feet. He out-wrestles Oliveira in the first round and ends up getting the victory. And then he loses to Phil Rowe in his last one. It's a fight that Price is in the driver's seat until he's not, until Rowe finishes him in the third round. And that's, again, been a theme of Phil Rowe's career. He loses fights until he wins them late in the fight. Orion Cosey fight, Jason Witt fight, the Niko Price fights happened a lot in the career of Phil Rowe. Obviously, just lost to Neil Magny in his last fight. But for Niko Price, it's not like he's been, winning fights left and right. He has been losing fights. It's just, is he better than Robbie Lawler at this point? I think he is. Again, Robbie's just kind of a shell of his former self. He's looked slower in his last couple fights. Again, he was in the fight against Barberena, but he just ended up losing. And Barberena was just at the end of the day, better chin, better cardio, still a little bit more power. You know, it's just Robbie's 41. How invested in the fight game is he truly? How much is he truly invested at this point? Because it is his last fight. You know, it's the career's over after this for Robbie Lawler. What do we get out of him for this fight? I think he loses. I think Nico Price picks up the win. I'm gonna go same exact kind of style of how Barberena got it. Go Nico Price second round knockout. And it's there's no denying how great of a career Robbie Lawler's had and how great of a fighter he is. But at 41 years old, there's only so much you can do. And again, the guy we've talked about, yes, Nico Price hasn't won fights. Well, Robbie Lawler's won one fight since 2017. Price has won one fight since 2019, but Lawler's only win since the Cowboy fight was Nick Diaz, and Nick Diaz hadn't fought in 10 years. So I like Robbie Lawler. I've always liked Robbie Lawler. You know, my favorite fights that I've ever watched, the Carlos Condit fight and the Rory McDonald fight. He'll always have the title run, but at this point, again, there's not much you can say other than he's just at the end of his career. I think he's going to lose. I think Price is better at this point. And I wish all the best for Robbie Lawler. But how does Robbie really win this fight? I don't know. He's going to have to turn back the clock, and he's going to have to knock him out. But even an older Nick Diaz who hadn't fought in 10 years, it did take Robbie Lawler 3 rounds to do so, to go out there and win the fight. Nick Diaz kind of held his own in the first round too. So if Robbie's going to win, it'll likely be by knockout, but I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. Nico Price is the better striker. Nico Price is the quicker striker. He's got more power, I would say, at this point of his career. Nico Price is going to go out there and win. Price is going to get it done again by second round TKO. Next up, opening up the main card, Bo Nickal's second UFC fight, and he gets Tresean Gore again here at the middleweight division. It's not a crazy step up. It's really not. It's kind of a step up from Jamie Pickett, but in all fairness, it's really not. I mean, if you are unfamiliar with Tresean Gore, this is a guy who's 4-2 professionally. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He came into the Ultimate Fighter 3-0. He beats Ryder Newman in the first round his first fight in the first round against. He beats Ryder Newman by decision in the first round of the Ultimate Fighter show. Ryder Newman's a fighter who's now 6-1, who I think will likely be getting a shot in the Contender Series soon. I think because since he lost to Gore on the Ultimate Fighter, he's won 3 straight fights. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ryder Newman gets another shot in the UFC soon. But he beats Ryder Newman, then he beats Gilbert Urbina. Urbina's a fighter who is 1-1 now in the UFC after losing to Brian Battle. He beats Orion Cosey. Why did Gilbert Urbina fight Brian Battle? Well, that was for the Ultimate Fighter Championship. Tresean Gore, I believe he blew out his knee before the Brian Battle fight. Fight doesn't happen. Battle ends up fighting Urbina for the championship. Battle wins, and then Battle ends up fighting Tresean Gore in Gore's first fight in the UFC. Battle beats him by unanimous decision. Then Gore gets knocked out by Cody Brundage in his second fight in the promotion. But then, in his third fight, gotta win the fight to stay in the promotion, he beats Josh Fremd, and he submits Fremd the guillotine choke in the second round. It's a big emotional victory for Tresean Gore. How does the UFC reward him? Hey, you get a UFC pay-per-view main card fight, but you get Bo Nickal. What are the odds? Bo Nickal, minus 1,200. Gore, plus 700. My goodness. I don't know how Tresean Gore wins. Well, actually, I do. How you're going to beat Bo Nickal, you have to keep him on the feet. You have to be a better striker than him. Is Tresean Gore a better striker than Bo Nickal? Everything that I've seen, which means the lack of striking that we've seen out of Bo Nickal, because he has been such a good striker, he has been such a good wrestler, because that's just what he is. He's Bo Nickal. There's been no need to strike for Bo Nickal. The last time I saw him strike was in his first fight in Icon FC, where he knocked out a guy who looked like he was coming out the retirement home, John Noland, where he knocks him out in 33 seconds on the feet. But that's the only time Bo Nickal is going to be striking with guys, because even Tresean Gore and even Jamie Pickett, these are guys at the UFC level, and even the guys that he fought in the Contender Series, Donovan Beard, Zach Borrego, those are guys that are going to give Bo Nickal a little bit of trouble on the feet if Bo Nickal's not that good of a striker. But we just haven't seen it. And Bo Nickal's new to MMA, so I'm assuming his striking game is not going to be on par to what even Tresean Gore's is. But that doesn't matter because of how good of a wrestling game he has. Again, Bo Nickal, he's Penn State wrestler, one of the best college wrestlers of all time, Bo Nickal, now in the UFC. And I would make the comparison to a similar extent to Alex Pereira. Obviously, Pereira, great kickboxer, right? Glory kickboxer, comes in the UFC. Alex Pineda doesn't have much wrestling, doesn't have much jiu-jitsu. He's worked on it, obviously, with Glover Teixeira in Danbury, Connecticut. He's obviously worked on it some since arriving to the UFC, to the MMA scene. That's kind of the similar extent I would say Bo Nickal's striking is, right? Nickal's fighting out of American Top Team. They have coaches over there. They have guys that there will spar with him striking. So I will say, basically, to a similar extent, what Alex Pineda's grappling is, that's what Bo Nickal's striking is. It's getting better, it's improving, but it's not going to be at the level where some of these elite guys are. And again, Tresean Gore's not an elite striker, but he's a decent striker. So if Bo Nickal remained on the feet and Bo Nickaljust struck with Tresean Gore, okay, he'd lose, right? I think, but that's not what's gonna happen, right? He's gonna go there. He's gonna take down Tresean Gore and he's gonna beat him on the ground, right? Gore was taken down by Brian Battle, even though Battle did go 1 for 8 on his takedowns, but again, Brian Battle's not Bo Nickal. And Cody Brundage did take down Tresean Gore, eventually knocked him out. Again, Cody Brundage is not Bo Nickal. But again, if Cody Brundage and Brian Battle are taking down Tresean Gore, I know Gore took down Josh Friend 3 times, which is great. But still, it's a different story when Bo Nickal's out there. Again, I think Bo Nickal would have a chance against Israel Adesanya. Just the matchup. Because if Bo Nickal's able to take down Adesanya, that's tough. It's tough for Izzy, right? Now, again, if Izzy's able to set the takedown, okay, it's going to be a long night for Bo Nickal. He'll probably get knocked out in the first round. But matchup-wise, Bo Nickal is just going to be a very tough opponent for a lot of these guys in the weight class. Again, we need to see him against tougher opponents, right? But matchup-wise and the wrestling credentials he does have, he's such a tough fight for some of these guys at 185, right? And you look at the top of the weight class, there really aren't any dominant wrestlers. There aren't many, and there's guys who can wrestle, have the capabilities of wrestling. Looking at Brunson, looking at Dolidze a little bit, but Brunson and Vittori I'm looking at. But those are guys who haven't been able to beat Adesanya, right? But neither of those guys have the wrestling prowess that Bo Nickal has. And really nobody in the UFC has that. So it's just different, right? It's just different. And it's a new possible challenger for Adesanya, assuming Adesanya can get past, when we're talking, again, Adesanya has got some fights before potentially fighting Nickal, but he's got the winner of Whittaker du Plessis. Then he's likely, I think, got a fight against, if Ikram Askarov can win some fights, then I think you can probably see Ikram Askarov there. But after those two, then, yeah, Sean Strickland, I think, can make the case. Because honestly, I think Strickland will fight the winner of Paulo Costa, Ikram Askarov, if he will fight Costa. That will likely be next, I think, for Strickland, because Strickland, again, after his win, is likely to fight away from the belt. Maybe Strickland fights Cannonier. Actually, that's probably a good shout. That's probably what's going to happen. I think they'll probably do Cannonier Strickland too. Hell, if they're willing to do Ryan Spann and Anthony Smith again, they'll probably do Sean Strickland and Jared Cannonier again. Probably throw him in a main event again in the Apex. The winner of that fight will likely fight Adesanya, I think, because Cannonier, again, with his win over Vittori, I think is deserving if he can beat Strickland of a rematch. So I think for Izzy, if Bo Nickal keeps winning, and if they push Bo Nickal right and they give him strikers, like, hell, okay, let's say this how this is. Bo Nickal's going to win this fight. He's going to win by first round submission, okay? He's going to get a first round submission victory over Tresean Gore. Now, if they book him right, like how they booked Alex Pineda right? They gave him Michailidis, then they gave him Bruno Silva, then they gave him Sean Strickland, then they gave him the belt, okay? So if they book Bo Nickal right, who do they give him next? They give him Bruno Silva. Like, honestly, they'll probably give him Bruno Silva because Bruno Silva was just submitted by Brendan Allen, and, he's kind of the stepping stone, right? So they'll give him Bruno Silva. Then they need to give him a guy in the top 10. So they'll give him, they'll give him, like, Adrigas du Plessis, or they'll give him, I don't know who else in the top 10 they could have him fight. They can't give him Strickland because I'm assuming Strickland's going to be fighting Cannonier or something like that. Here, they give him Jack Hermanson, right? And they give him the championship. Right, so that's kind of the pathway to Nickal, and by the time he wins those two fights over Bruno Silva and Jack Hermanson, then Adesanya is done with the winner of du Plessis Whittaker, and this is assuming Adesanya wins, but still, saying he wins, he's done with the winner of du Plessis Whittaker, and he's done with the winner of Cannonier Strickland, then there you go, Bo Nickal. And again, this is assuming Adesanya doesn't go up to 205 pounds, but I don't think Israel Adesanya wants it against Yuri Prochazka. Right, and I think Prochazka is going to beat Jamal Hill when they fight. We'll get to that fight when we get to it. That hasn't even been scheduled yet. But when that fight has happened, I think Yuri does get the belt back. Does Izzy really want it with Yuri? I don't think he does. So I think Izzy will stay at 185 pounds. Eventually, he will have to fight Bo Nickal. and eventually I think Bo Nickal's going to get to him, and that's just going to be interesting. But it all dependent on how the UFC builds Bo Nickal to get to the championship fight. Because again, they knew how to book Pereira to the championship by not giving him a single wrestler. They didn't even give him Robert Whittaker. They didn't give him Brunson. They didn't give him, even Jack Hermanson. They didn't give him anyone who could test him wrestling-wise. They're not going to give anyone who can really test Nickal wrestling-wise, because honestly, nobody can test Nickal wrestling-wise. And it's completely different. The Bo Nickal story and Alex Pereira stories are kind of different because, again, to a certain extent, you need wrestling. Wrestling is the base in MMA. You need to have a little bit of wrestling to win fights. The way the UFC was able to get around it with Alex Pereira is because they gave him guys that, A, were stupid enough not to wrestle him. They're stupid enough to not wrestle him. That's Sean Strickland. And other strikers, Bruno Silva, Andreas Michailidis. They gave him guys who would strike with him. Even Michailidis, though, grappled him in the first fight and took him down in the first fight in the first round. Eventually, Pereira got the flying knee knockout in the second round. But they booked Pereira so he could get the championship fight. In all fairness, they don't have to book Bo Nickal until he gets the championship fight. They don't have to book around him because he can just fight anybody because there's going to be nobody who's a better wrestler than him. There's going to be guys that are better strikers than him. Hell, Tresean Gore is a better striker than him, but that doesn't matter as long as you have wrestling. And that's why wrestling is probably the best base to have in MMA. That's why Khabib was so successful. That's why a lot of these Dagestani guys are so successful. It's just because they can go wrestle guys. They don't need the striking because they have the wrestling. And if you can't stuff a takedown, you're going to get submitted and you're going to lose a fight. So, really for Bo Nickal, we'll see. We'll see. Because, again, he could lose. He could definitely lose. And he might not be the guy we think he is. But if he is, 2 more fights, and I think he's got a world championship fight. And I remember when I said this with Alex Pereira, I said this when he fought Bruno Silva, and people thought I was crazy for saying that 2 fights later he could be at a championship fight. He became the champion. Just saying it now. There's a very good chance that happens with Bo Nickal. Not saying the championship, but definitely a fight for the title against Izzy. It can happen. Okay, next up, we have got Dan the Hangman Hooker taking on the Tarantula, Jalen Turner. So here now at 155 pounds, Hooker is back at 155 after that one fight against Arnold Allen at 145, which just felt like something that wasn't good considering Hooker doesn't have a good chin in the first place, but he dropped down. It's fine. He's back at 155 pounds because his last fight was a good win. It was a good one for Dan Hooker. It was a weird fight. It was a win over Claudio Puelles. Claudio Puelles kind of just became a meme in that fight, and it sucks because Claudio is actually not that bad, but Claudio has not fought since the Dan Hooker fight. Puelles, if you don't know, is a really good grappler, and he did not want the smoke with Dan Hooker on the feet for good reason. Dan Hooker is really good on the feet. So he just kind of tried to roll with them the entire time. He fished for, Imanari's. He, tried to get the fight on the ground, take down, couldn't get it, take down. So Puelles would just kind of lay on his back and wait for Hooker to come into his guard. The thing is, Hooker wasn't willing to do that, so Puelles was just kind of waiting. And eventually, again, Puelles got tired on the feet. Hooker was really working the body. Dan Hooker eventually wins by body kick in the second round. Okay, now he's Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner was supposed to fight Dan Hooker earlier this year. That fight did not happen. Mateus Gamrot took the fight on short notice, and Mateus Gamrot beat Jalen Turner by split decision. It's a fight that a lot of people thought Jalen Turner won. I can definitely see that. I could go either way with the scorecards. They gave it to Gamrot. I'm not mad at it, but I can definitely see the case for Jalen Turner in that fight. Turner, before the Mateus Gamrot fight, 5-fight winning streak in the UFC. It's a win over Brad Riddell in the first round by submission. It's a win in the second round by knockout over Jamie Mullarkey. It's a win by submission in the first round before that against Eros Medic. It's a submission win over Brock Weaver before that by second round submission. And then it's a TKO win over Joshua Kalibau before that. His UFC run started kind of shaky. He loses to Vicente Luque. He wins against Callan Potter. Then he loses to Matt Frivola. But after that, Jalen Turner found his footing in the UFC. He's good. Turner's good on the ground. He's good on the feet. All around, this guy's really good for the weight class. And by the way, he's 6'3". He is by far, I believe, the tallest lightweight on the roster. So he's really just a lanky fighter, and he's got a lot of skills, and he's really on the ground. And again, the striking is good out of Jalen Turner too. Turner is a very solid fighter. He knocks down Mateus Gamrot in the first round of their fight at UFC 285. It's the round that he wins. The judges gave rounds 2 and 3 to Gamrot, which I'm fine with because Gamrot out-wrestled Turner in those rounds, but really wasn't able to do much with his wrestling in the second round, so that's kind of the split round. The third round, I get for Gamrot. He had 3 minutes of control in that one, but the second round, that's the tough round to score because Turner outstrikes Gamrot. It's just Gamrot gets a takedown and has him down for about 90 seconds. It's a close round, but Turner now gets Dan Hooker. I think he beats Dan Hooker. I think so. I think he goes in there. He kind of just mops the floor with Hooker. I know Hooker beats Claudio Puelles, but that's the style of fight that he's able to win because I still think Dan's chin's kind of gone. I think it is. You look at the Arnold Allen fight. It's a fight that these two just go back and forth. This is in London. They just kind of go back and forth on the feet, but really it's Arnold Allen hitting Dan Hooker a lot more than what Dan Hooker is hitting Arnold Allen with. And Allen outstrikes him 49-14, finishes him in the first round by knockout, right? So Hooker comes back after that. He beats Puelles, and now here we are. That Puelles fight was in November of last year. He hasn't been the same guy since the Poirier fight. The Poirier fight took a toll on Dan Hooker. Because that was the fight that, if you remember after that fight, people were saying, okay, this is the fight now. Hooker is in the elite of the weight class. Dustin Poirier said so. This is Dan Hooker's introduction in the elite of the weight class. And at the time, the elite of the weight class was Dustin, Gaethje, Habib, Conor at the time, Tony Ferguson. That was kind of the elite of the weight class back. This is summer of 2020. Now a lot has changed. Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, but still at the time that's what the Michael Chandler now. But that's what the elite of the weight class was. Remember, Poirier said that. Yeah, we're welcoming him into the elite. He's in the top 5 now. They give him Michael Chandler in a fight where, looking back at it, Chandler got a world championship fight after winning that fight. Chandler's UFC debut, he knocks out Dan Hooker in the first round. I remember, I thought that fight was gonna be really close. I rarely ever say this in my videos, but I said that fight was gonna be a split decision. I was like, yeah, this fight's gonna be razor thin. I think the judges are gonna judges aren't going to know who's going to win this fight because it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be split. I think it's going to be a really close fight. And I never pick split decisions. And I didn't outright say go bet in a split decision. But I'm just saying that's how close I think the fight was going to be. Because I think there's going to be I thought there was going to be a lot of swing rounds in that fight where who knows? I thought Chandler was going to wrestle a lot. Anyways, Michael Chandler doesn't wait for that. He knocks him out in the first round. And then Hooker comes back. He beats Nasrat Haqparast. It's a fight where he out-wrestles Haqparast. He outstrikes him too, but it's a lot of wrestling done by Hooker in that fight after the first round. The first round he outstrikes Haqparast, and the second and the third, he just goes out there and out-wrestles him. And then he runs into Islam Makhachev. And it was Makhachev's first true test, because Makhachev before that was coming off a win over, Thiago Moises in a main event. Okay. But he beats Dan Hooker. Great. And then he beats Bobby Green and then he gets the world championship fight. But that was really his first big test, and he goes in there and he just mauls Dan Hooker. Submits him with the Kimura, wins the fight. Hooker then gets Allen, he loses, needs the win over Claudio Puelles, he wins it. But again, the test wasn't really, the chin wasn't really tested in that fight because Claudio Puelles isn't a striker, he's a grappler. And Hooker was able to keep the fight on the feet, so he won that fight. But now you get Jalen Turner, a guy with a lot of power and a guy who can really test you on the ground as well. Because for Hooker in the Claudio Puelles fight, he was so successful because he didn't have to worry about Claudio Puelles hurting him at all on the feet. He's going to have to worry about Jalen Turner hurting him on the feet, though. Turner's going to give him some trouble. Turner will give him trouble on the feet. And also, if Turner wants to mix it up as well, he can get him on the ground. I think Jalen Turner's going to be successful down there as well. I think Jalen Turner wins. I'm going to go with the Tarantula to win this fight. Again, I'm still Dan Hooker's chin. I know he's fought since, but the fights that his chin has been tested, Michael Chandler, Arnold Allen, he's wilted because the chin just isn't there anymore. Dan Hooker is still a good fighter. He can still beat guys who don't have great power and guys who aren't great strikers, but against guys like this, he's going to wilt just because his chin just can't hold it anymore. And that's kind of what happens after you fight Dustin Poirier for 5 rounds in a war. But that's what happened in the Chandler fight. That's what happened in the Arnold Allen fight. I know the Allen fight was at 145, so the chin might have been depleted more, but I think that's what's going to happen in the Jalen Turner fight. I think Turner's going to get to the chin. I think it's going to be the biggest win to date for him. First round knockout victory for Jalen Turner. Again, Turner's a pretty sizable favorite. People on Tapology going with Turner 81% to 19%. Yeah. Give me Jalen Turner to win this fight. I like him to win by first round knockout. Okay, a huge fight in the middleweight division. Robert Whittaker versus Dricus du Plessis. The winner gets Israel Adesanya. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rob's going to mop the floor with him, and Rob's going to just absolutely kill him. Maybe. I mean, I know. Yeah, maybe. But as someone who's picked Dricus du Plessis in every single fight that he's had so far in the UFC, will I pick him here? I don't know. But, man, don't count out du Plessis. Every time you think Dricus du Plessis is going to lose, I don't care how sloppy and I don't care how ugly it is, Dricus du Plessis finds a way to win fights. He just does. Even, if you watch his first UFC fight against Marcus Perez, He's so gun shy in that fight. You can tell he's like nervous going in there for the first time in the UFC octagon. Perez is kind of taking it to him early in that fight. I give the fight only lasts 3.5 minutes, but still, early in that fight, Perez is kind of winning, and then du Plessis goes boom, big overhand finishes him. I think it was a straight that finished him, but you know, it was a hook actually. But you know, du Plessis comes back, wins that fight. The Trevin Giles fight, du Plessis admittedly was kind of ahead in that fight the entire time. The Brad Tavares fight, it's an ugly fight, but du Plessis wins. And again, you know, the trouble du Plessis has with his nose, he can't, you know, I think, he gets like 50% less oxygen than everybody else does, some fact like that, I don't know. But, you know, du Plessis can't really breathe that well. But hell, du Plessis goes in there and beats Tavares. He looks really good in doing so. I know he gasses really quickly, and du Plessis looks like he's on the edge of dying a lot, but Jesus, my chair. But he wins. Du Plessis wins. And that's undeniable so far. He's been winning fights. He's undefeated in the UFC. The Derek Brunson fight, I forgot the Darren Till fight. The Darren Till fight, okay, he's on his way to win, but then Till kind of comes back in that second round, and then du Plessis finds a way to get him down, finds a way to get a neck crank and wins the fight. His next fight against Derek Brunson, it's shaky. It's shaky. Brunson's got him in that first round. It's not good. Second round, du Plessis comes back and knocks him out. Like, again, I saw the meme on Twitter. Like, it's all fun and games until it's something along the lines of it's all fun and games until Dricus du Plessis. You see a big overhand big overhand by du Plessis. He knocks out Robert Whittaker cold. Because du Plessis does have power. He does. He's just a little bit unconventional, and he does again kind of just throw strikes where it looks like he's exhausted, which he probably is. He just kind of. It's like in the UFC game where your guy's out of stamina, but you just keep on pressing triangle and square, and he just keeps going like that, right? But he keeps on throwing. The thing is, du Plessis still does damage, and he does that when he's dead tired, and yet he's looked dead tired in all of his fights so far in the UFC for the most part. But all of them but one have been finishes. Du Plessis still gets finishes. So yes, I know. And people keep saying, okay, when he gets to an elite fighter, when he gets against a guy, like, okay, you know, hell, Brunson's going to expose him. Darren Till's going to expose him. Du Plessis keeps on winning. And I know he is a huge underdog in this fight with Robert Whittaker. He is plus 300 against Robert Whittaker, who's coming in at minus 400. But still, is this the one? Because people have been saying this for a while. Okay, du Plessis is going to get fraud checked. Du Plessis is going to finally lose. Well, now this is the last fight for du Plessis before fighting for the World Championship. In all fairness, I think du Plessis should be fighting for the belt right now. I thought Robert Whittaker should fight Sean Strickland. You know, I think you take advantage of the du Plessis-Adesanya fight. Adesanya wants du Plessis to win. Adesanya doesn't like du Plessis. You got the whole Africa thing, right? Both these guys from Africa. It's a big fight. Both guys want it. That's why I think Adesanya should be fighting du Plessis right now, and this fight shouldn't even happen. That's why I was confused when the UFC booked it, because a lot of people thought du Plessis was immediately getting the World Championship fight. They're making du Plessis earn it. But man, it's a tough fight, because, again, and Rob, he's already lost twice to Izzy, so they're willing to do the Izzy fight again, which is good. I'm cool with that. It's just, again, I think they could have capitalized on an Adesanya du Plessis fight, which, given, would it be close? Maybe not. But still, would it sell and it would it be an entertaining build? I think it would be. It would be one of the last fights in a while. Well, the Adesanya Pereira fights have, build to it and, real emotion to it. But Adesanya Whittaker 3, it's a good fight because a lot of people, you make the case that Whittaker won the second fight against Izzy, but is it a fight that's going to, sell pay-per-views? I don't know. Du Plessis Adesanya, I think, sells pay-per-views because of the heat that it has behind it. There's no heat behind Whittaker Adesanya 3. Is it a good fight and will I watch? Yes. Will I be excited for it? Yes. Will I be excited for Du Plessis Adesanya? Yeah, I will. Now, for Robert Whittaker, he's beat everybody but the champion, right? I mean, his last loss that wasn't Israel Adesanya was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in 2014. That goes to show you what Robert Whittaker is able to do, right? He wins the championship off of the interim fight against Yoel Romero. He gets promoted to the world champion when GSP vacates the belt. He beats Romero again, actually a non-title fight, but he beats him by split decision. Then he runs into Izzy. Izzy knocks him out. He comes back, beats Darren Till, beats Jared Cannonier, beats Kelvin Gastelum. They have to give him another shot. He loses. It's a fight that, again, very close. You can make the case Rob wins. And then they give him Marvin Vettori in Paris. He beats Vettori by unanimous decision. Another win. He gets a third crack at the belt. I'm cool with the third crack of the belt. Like, yeah, he deserves it. It's the Max Holloway thing at 145 pounds, but it's with Robert Whittaker at 185. Now, this fight against Duplessis. Rob is going to bring it to Duplessis. He will. Rob will bring it to Dricus in this fight. Dricus has not seen anybody like Robert Whittaker before. Robert Whittaker's striking is truly on another level. We've said it before at the middleweight division. It is everybody else, gap, Robert Whittaker, slight gap, Israel Adesanya. And I think maybe, because the one guy that we're thinking, okay, maybe is above the rest is Marvin Vettori, but now I guess maybe Jared Cannonier's above Vettori, so maybe there is a gap between rest of the weight class, slight gap, Marvin Vettori, slight gap, Jared Cannonier, huge gap, Robert Whittaker. Because Rob, of course, has beat Cannonier and Vettori, and Israel has too. And I know Sean Strickland's in there too, and now Dricus, obviously. But man, again, Rob's beating all these guys, and Rob's striking, he's beating all these guys as well. Again, Duplessis is going to try to wear him out. Duplessis is going to try to get into Rob's face. He is going to try to make Whittaker work, because that's how Duplessis wins fights. Duplessis tries to make it a dog fight. Duplessis tries to make it a fight that doesn't look all that visually appealing, but somehow he still wins. And it has been successful so far, but he has not run into the Reaper yet. He has not seen a guy like Robert Whittaker yet. I think it's incredibly tough because it's Robert Whittaker. That's why I'm picking Robert Whittaker to win. I think Whittaker eventually finishes him. I think Robert Whittaker wins this fight by second round knockout. Now, I think Dricus has got a shot. I think a lot of people think that Dricus has zero shot in this fight. I think he seriously has a shot in this fight, because Dricus has undeniably, he's got power. It might be ugly, and he might open himself up to a lot of opportunities where Rob can pick him apart, and that's why I'm picking Rob in the first place, because I think Dricus, again, just wings out shots, and Rob will be able to pick him apart, and, he'll see the holes in Duplessis' striking game, which there obviously are some. But Dricus can win if Dricus gets in his face, and Duplessis puts 3 shots into him, drops Rob, finishes him. That's how Duplessis got it when he's got to knock out Robert Whittaker. The only guy to do it in the middleweight division has been Israel Adesanya, and it's only happened once. But at some point in time, Robbie Lawler, the wars are going to catch up to you, and at some point in time, the chin's going to go away. I'm not saying it's right here, but Rob's been in a lot of wars. Rob's been in a lot of good fights. The Romero fights. Hell, the Jared Cannonier fight was good. The Izzy fights. Didn't really take too much damage in the Marvin fight, but he's been in some wars, and he's been in a lot of 5-round fights. This one's 3. Just like his last one against Vettori. But, again, if Dricus hits him, he's going to earn some respect out of Robert Whittaker. And Robert Whittaker will feel the power of Dricus Duplessis. It's just a matter of, can Duplessis seal the deal? I don't think so. I think Rob wins. I think, again, Rob kind of just... I think the combo it's going to get Whittaker is going to be the jab, cross, big hook kick at the end. I think that's going to really wobble Dricus. I think Rob hit that against Jared. I think he's going to probably do it against Duplessis. I'm going to say that's going to be the combo that ends the fight. Robert Whittaker wins by second round knockout. Okay, co-main event time for the Flyweight Championship. It is the third fight between Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno. Plus 165, I'm just saying, looks pretty damn good for the challenger. He's beat Moreno twice. How has he beat Brandon Moreno? Well, the first time, Ultimate Fighter, it was where... So, we'll take you back to this Ultimate Fighter season. It's Benavidez versus Cejudo. The first pick goes to Joseph Benavidez. He takes the number 1 seed, Alexandre Pantoja. Now, they didn't have to make matchups in that season because they already ranked him. It was basically 16 flyweights from 16 different promotions, where the winner at the end of the season went on to fight, Demetrius Johnson, because this was in point in the time where DJ's beating everybody, so they had to get him fights, right? So they brought in a bunch of guys. Pantoja was the champion in RFA. I don't even know where Moreno was the champion. Moreno was the champion in WFF. By far not as good a promotion as what RFA is, but still the WFF champion. And that's the first fight because, again, Moreno's fighting at a WFF and Pantoja's fighting out of RFA. They do Moreno and Pantoja because Moreno's the 16 seed, Pantoja's the first seed. This is back when Moreno and Cejudo were close. But Cejudo's got the number 1 pick. He takes Pantoja, so automatically the 16th pick goes to Benavidez. So Moreno is Benavidez's fighter. Cejudo doesn't coach that fight, but Pantoja wins. Pantoja sets a pace. Pantoja kind of beats Moreno to the punch every time in that fight. He just kind of beats him. It's a striking fight for the most part, and Pantoja beats him. Now they fight again. You go back to 2018. The second fight is on a fight in Santiago, Chile. A fight card in Santiago, Chile. The main event is Damian Maia versus Kamaru Usman. It's the rematch. Pantoja beats him. Pantoja, again, beats Brandon Moreno to the punch. Moreno tries 7 takedowns. He only gets him down twice, and Pantoja pops back up to his feet both times that Moreno takes him down. The first time, he had him down for, 5 seconds? The second time, he had him down for 11 seconds. So Moreno was not able to take down Pantoja, and he wasn't able to strike with Pantoja, because Pantoja, again, beat him every single time. He was quick, way quicker than Brandon Moreno in that fight. Miles ahead of him in speed. He outstrikes him basically 2-1 in that fight. And that's the last time Moreno has lost other than the Deiveson Figueiredo rematch. So since then for Moreno, he went out, he got cut from the UFC right after the Pantoja fight. He got cut from the UFC, goes to LFA, wins the LFA Flyweight Championship, then comes back to the UFC as a split draw against Askar Askarov, beats Kai Kara-France, beats Jussier Formiga, beats Brandon Royval, has the draw against Figueiredo for the championship, beats Figueiredo, loses the third fight to Deiveson Figueiredo by decision, beats Kai Kara-France for the interim championship, gets the fourth fight against Figueiredo, where again Moreno dominates that fight, really goes in there and beats the living hell out of Juice Teguera, wins by third round doctor stoppage. The eye swells to Figueiredo. Figueiredo can't see out the eye. Moreno picks up the victory. It's a tremendous victory for the Assassin Baby and Brandon Moreno. It was the most decisive victory out the four. Or, even the second fight, I would say, is even more decisive. He just goes in there and really just outboxes Deiveson, unlike the third fight where he submitted him, even though he did knock him down to get the submission. But still, Moreno wins the quadrilogy. I doubt we're ever going to see that fight ever again, because it looks like Deiveson Figueiredo is going to 135, even though he was booked against Manel Kape for this card, actually, but it got scrapped. So I'm assuming Juice Teguera that was going up to 135. He should. I forget, there's someone he was linked to earlier. I don't remember, at 135. But anyways, Moreno Pantoja. Again, Moreno won against Figueiredo, and now what do we got for Alexandre Pantoja? Well, since that Brandon Moreno fight, he wins 2 fights after that, runs into Deiveson Figueiredo, loses by unanimous decision, then beats Matt Schnell, loses to Askar Askarov, but this is where the winning streak starts. Beats Manel Kape in Kape's UFC debut. He was the rising champion coming into it, and Pantoja beats him. Submits Brandon Royval, who I think is probably next for the World Championship. Royval has put himself in a really good spot to get a championship opportunity next after his 3 straight wins over Boncharin, Matt Schnell, and Matheus Nickal, because Nickal is definitely next for the championship if he won. Royval goes out there and upsets him by knockout in the first round, so I'm assuming Royval is next for both these guys, even though Royval has lost to both these guys before. You look at the weight class, there's really nobody else left, considering you can't give the fight to Manel Kape. I don't think over Royval, because Royval beat the guy that Kape lost to in Nickal, even though a lot of people thought that Royval, a lot of people thought that Kape beat Nickal. Maybe you can give it to Amir Albazi, but a lot of people don't, I don't think Albazi beat Kai Kara-France, but it is a new fight, so maybe Albazi will get the winner. I think it still will go to Royval, though. Kai Kara-France is fighting Manel Kape, so if I'm booking the weight class, I think you do Nickal versus Albazi, and Royval versus the winner of this fight. Maybe. Muhammad Mokaev's around here too, but still, Mokaev hasn't seen the jump up in competition yet. Him and Alex Perez would be nice, I'm just saying. Anyways, so Pantoja beats Royval, he submits him, he beats Alex Perez in his last fight, and that's the fight that gets him the championship fight, given Alex Perez isn't all that great. And hey, Pantoja hasn't fought in a year. That Perez fight was in July of last year. He's been booked Perez has been booked in a million fights. Pantoja has been waiting for the championship fight. He's been waiting for the 4 fights to be over. And now here he is. Pantoja kind of got robbed of the interim fight. I think he probably is more deserving over Kai Kara-France. I know the hype was there for Kai Kara-France after his victory in Columbus over one Askar Askarov, and Askarov had a lot of hype on him at the time, so I understand. For Askarov, we haven't seen the guy since the Kai Kara-France fight. He's no longer in the UFC. After he missed weight against Brandon Royval, he got cut. He's going to be fighting an ACA coming up in a couple weeks. So, there's that for Askar Askarov outside the promotion. But for Pantoja, has anything really changed since the Moreno fight? Obviously, both guys have gotten better. I think Moreno's striking game's better, but Pantoja's already beat him twice. What's telling you this one's going to be any different? Really, I'm taking Alexandre Pantoja. I'm taking him to win by unanimous decision. I think Pantoja and New is going to become the flyweight champion. I think, again, he's going to remain the quicker fighter. I think he's going to be quicker than Brandon Moreno. And I don't think if Brandon Moreno tries to take down Alexandre Pantoja, 1, will he be able to take him down? I don't know. 2, He's not going to be able to hold down Pantoja. Pantoja, really good jiu-jitsu, by the way, and Pantoja is really good at getting back up to his feet. So, as a whole, Alexandre Pantoja, I think, is going to become the new flyweight champion. I think Pantoja wins, and I think then you get the rematch between him and Brandon Royval. I think Royval is cheering for Moreno because I think matchup-wise, Royval is a little bit better. Matchup is going to be Brandon Moreno, but I think Pantoja is going to win, and I think he will fight Brandon Royval next for the championship. Maybe Moreno gets a rematch, but I don't think he can because it would be the fourth fight, and he's already lost 3 times. So it puts Moreno in a really weird spot because if Pantoja wins, Moreno cannot fight for the championship until Pantoja loses it. So it's a big fight for Brandon Moreno. There's going to be no rematch. He needs to beat Pantoja because if he loses, then he's going to have to wait for Pantoja to lose the belt. But I think Pantoja gets it. Pantoja, I think, again, he's got the speed advantage, and I think on the ground he's got the advantage too. So I think he's going to beat Moreno to the punch every single time, just like he did in their first 2 fights. And Alexandre Pantoja is going to outstrike Brandon Moreno, and he's going to beat him by unanimous decision. Okay, on to the main event for the Featherweight Championship. The great I butchered it. Alexander the Great Volkanovski, my goodness, takes on Yair Rodriguez. He's almost cleaned out the weight class, right? 145 is kind of getting, diluted because of all the guys that Volkanovski's beat. Now, there's one Ilia Topuria who will likely be next, I think, for the winner of this fight. Well, if El Pantera wins, obviously, I think Volkanovski gets the rematch. But, I think that next for Volkanovski, given he wins, will likely be Ilia Topuria. Now, maybe you book Ilia Topuria against Arnold Allen, but I don't really see the point in that. I'd like to see Arnold Allen against Movsar Evloev personally. And I think Ilia Topuria should probably fight Volkanovski if Volkanovski wins. Or he should fight for the championship given as long as Yair doesn't win. If Yair does win, then hell, Ilia and Arnold Allen does seem like a great fight. But it seems like Ilia Topuria will be next for the world championship. Anyways, Alexander Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez. I think Alexander Volkanovski should be a double champion right now. I thought he beat Islam. I think he did. I thought he beat Islam in that fight. It's fine. I understand they give it to Makhachev. I get it. Still though, I thought Alex won. I thought he did, but it's okay. It's fine. Regroup. Now he gets Yair Rodriguez. Now, I know we're high on Yair because he won in the co-main event on that card, and I know again Rodriguez went out there and he made it look easy against Josh Emmett. Well, you know who also made it look easy against Josh Emmett? Ilia Topuria, right? Yair's won back-to-back fights. The Brian Ortega win, was he going to beat Brian Ortega? Ortega's shoulder didn't pop out. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? I actually picked Ortega to win that fight. But he wins that fight on Long Island. Then he goes in there and he beats Josh Emmett. He does mop the floor with Emmett. I've been saying mop the floor a lot in this video, but he does go right through Emmett. He outstrikes him pretty handedly in the first round. In the second round, more of the same. He eventually gets the triangle choke after Emmett does take him down. So Yair threatens off his back and gets the submission. But El Pantera is now back and he gets Volkanovski. I feel like we're just forgetting the fight that he has against Max Holloway, though. I think we are. It's only 3 fights ago. Holloway goes out there and he outstrikes him for 5 rounds and he beats him. And now Yair does do better than a lot of the other guys that Max has fought, but Max still does beat him. And, oh, by the way, who 50-44'd Max Holloway? Alexander Volkanovski. There's a reason Volkanovski, for the longest time, was pushed as the #1 pound-for-pound guy. Obviously, he's not anymore. I think he's number 2 now because they still have him ahead of Makhachev, which I think is funny, which, sure, because maybe if both guys, again, if Volkanovski was a natural 155-pounder, maybe he does go out there and he does beat Makhachev. #1 pound-for-pound is John Jones, I understand. When is John fighting? I don't know. I'm assuming Stipe, but who knows? Maybe Sergey Pavlovich. I don't know. I think John beats both of them. But Tyson Fury, who knows? He'll beat Tyson Fury in an MMA fight if they have it. I don't think he's gonna ever fight Tyson Fury. But Volkanovski, again, there's a reason he was #1 pound-for-pound. It's because Max Holloway is the #1 contender. Max Holloway has beat everyone, including Yair Rodriguez, including Brian Ortega, including Calvin Kattar, including Arnold Allen. Now he's going to fight Zombie. He's beat all these guys, and Volkanovski just completely dusted him. Well, again, Max went out there, and sure, it wasn't a 50-45 like he's done to most guys that he did against Yair, but he still beat Yair pretty handedly. He outstruck him 230 to 159. I scored it 4-1 for Max. I think the only round Yair wins is the first. I think 2, 3, 4, 5 is all Max Holloway. I don't know what the other round they scored for Yair is. I think it's the second. I think, but I thought Max won 4-1. And Holloway's still very good. And yes, Jair's a quick striker, and I see a lot of people saying on Twitter, oh, I'm scared for Volkanovski this weekend. I'm not. He's minus 450 for a reason. Volk's last win was Max Holloway. I said Volk's going to win that fight 50-45. It's not going to be close. That's exactly what that fight was. And it's not like Max is washed. He just beat up Arnold Allen in Kansas City. So Max isn't a shell of his former self. That's just how good Volk is. The Chan Sung Jung fight dominates him. The Brian Ortega fight, sure, he's got a shaky fourth round, but other than that, he goes up there and he wins, right? He dominates. Second round. He's a shaky third round. The second Max fight's close, but he wins. The first Max fight's close, but he wins. I think the closest fight's the second fight. But Volkanovski's one of the best fighters in the world. I don't think he has much trouble with El Pantera here. I really don't think he does. Because Jair's not going to get him down. Because A, Volk's not going to shoot for a takedown. And B, Jair's not going to be able to take Volk down. Jair's got good jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't really take anybody down. The last guy he took down was Max Holloway. He took him down once in the third round, but he only had him down for 7 seconds. So before that, the only other takedown Jair's got is the Alex Caceres fight back in the main event in Salt Lake City, and he had him down for, 31 seconds? So Jair doesn't really take anybody down. Jair's a striker, obviously. He's got decent jiu-jitsu, but it's going to be a striking game out of Jair. He's going to be quick. He's going to throw kicks. He's going to throw those unique strikes like the elbow that he threw against Chan Sung Jung in Denver. But, Volk's too good. He's too smart. He's that good of a striker. I don't think Rodriguez is going to have a chance in this fight. I think Volk beats him 50-45. I think it's dominant. I think you might see it finish late in the fight, but I think Alexander Volkanovski wins every single round, and I think Alexander Volkanovski retains the world championship. He's going to get it on 50-45 in the main event. That's how good this guy is. He's the best. Well, I can't say the best pound-for-pound fighter anymore because John Jones is back, but he is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and he's going to go in there and he is going to dominate Yair Rodriguez. I think, again, we are forgetting Jair just fought Max Holloway and he lost. I know that now is 2 years ago, but still. But Alexander Volkanovski can go out there with the best of them. I don't think Jair is better than Max Holloway at this point. They're not the same fighter, obviously, but they offer a lot of the same striking-wise. I know Jair will throw different sort of strikes than, he's got more tools in his toolbox than what Max has. But Max, again, is an all-around better boxer. But Volk dealt with Holloway 3 times. He's going to deal with Yair Rodriguez. I like Yair. I think he's good, but truly, he beat Josh Emmett to get this fight, and he beat Brian Ortega after Ortega popped out his shoulder. That's the road to the championship for Yair Rodriguez. And Josh Emmett just got 50-43 by Ilia Topuria. Alexander Volkanovski wins. It's not close. Volkanovski wins 50-45, maybe throwing a 50-44 in there as well, and still world champion Alexander the Great Volkanovski holds onto the belt to end International Fight Week here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, that will do it for our UFC 290 predictions with Volk and Yair Rodriguez in the main event. If you did enjoy the video, that's the wrong screen. If you did enjoy the video, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to like as well if you did enjoy. We will be back later in the week for another UFC video of some sorts. It will be another one of those short films like the Abus Magomedov video is. Not going to tell you who it's about. It's someone on this card. I don't know if you're probably not going to be able to tell. But, yeah, you'll see it later this week. I think it's going to be a pretty good video like the Abus Magomedov video is. Next week, we'll be back for, oh my goodness, this card is so bad. Holly Holm, Myro Bueno Silva. That's the main event. The co-main event is Albert Duraev versus Jin Young Park. And then Walt Harris is back against Josh Parisian. Norma Dumont, Chelsea Chandler. Atman Azaitar, Francisco Prado, that's your main card. Terrence McKinney's on the undercard. Again, normally I do short films on fighters. Well, I'm going to start doing that. I don't know who I do it on from this card. Maybe Terrence McKinney. But, McKinney's 2-2 in the UFC? Anyways, folks, that does it for UFC 290. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. We'll be back next week. And join us later this week, probably on Tuesday, for the UFC short film. Thank y'all for watching. And Mamba forever.